My name is James Duthie. I am a professional football coin toss person and also a broadcaster occasionally.
So you're here at Carleton University for homecoming, and how are the festivities doing so far?
It's very cool. I haven't been back for something like this ever. I've come back to Carleton a couple of times to speak, but this was a chance for me to come back and go to a bunch of the football game, the hockey game, the basketball game, and wear my colors. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I've noticed you got the sea red on your face, and you have the Carleton buttons.
I got it all. Whatever they want to put on me, I'm putting on right now. I'm full in.
The hockey season has just started, and I want to know what your predictions are of who you think is going to win the cup.
Well, I mean, I think you're silly. Everyone wants to. I don't want to be boring, okay? So I'll take Anaheim, but in reality, it's really impossible to bet against Chicago or LA. I mean, I think they could exchange years and win the cup the next 6 years. I think they're the two best teams in the league, but stuff happens in the playoffs, so I'll take Anaheim.
I thought you would have learned from your Daryl Sittler experiment.
Yeah, exactly. Daryl, he was the one who drugged our drinks in the panel hangover, so I should have learned that lesson. You're right.
So you picked the West teams. Which team do you think is going to come out of the East?
That's a great question. I think it's really wide open. I think one of these years Pittsburgh's going to figure it out, although, I mean, their D still has issues, but someday they're going to figure it out. I can't figure out why with Crosby and Malkin they haven't won more than one cup. So I think I'd pick the Pens, but could be the Habs, could be the Bruins. I can name 6 teams, but I'll go with Pittsburgh.
Last night in the Detroit-Toronto game, a fan threw the jersey out on the ice.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's dumb because you pay $150 for a jersey, but and I think it's premature to do that. If it's game 75 and your team is 22 wins and whatever losses, then okay. But at this point of the season, I think it's a little dumb. But having said that, I don't think players saying, well, we don't want that person as a fan. Listen, you should be thankful for every fan you have, and I guess it's the fans' right to do whatever they want. If that's the way they want to protest, fine, but a little silly.
Do you think Reimer should have did what Scrivens did and threw it right back at him?
Yeah, I like it when that would have been cool, although they were having a bad night, so yeah, I would have liked them to have done that, but what are you going to do?
And, of course, you host the panel on the TSN.
Yeah.
Which one probably would be your best experience with the panel?
Wow, that's a great question. Like one moment or something?
Yeah, your favorite moment.
Wow, I'm not sure. I've probably done over the years, let's see, 100 games a year, 12 years. I probably have done 10,000 panels. So to pick one is really tough. Maybe my favorite would have been the gold medal game of the Olympics in Vancouver. Just doing that was pretty cool.
Have you ever had a slip-up like Darren Pang's one of PK Subban's incident?
I've had nothing to that degree, but yes, I've made a million mistakes. When you do live TV without a teleprompter and without a script for all these years, I've screwed up a lot. I can't think of one in particular to tell you, but there have been plenty.
And so what are my chances of Bryan Tobin getting an internship with TSN?
Is that what this is all about? This is where you're getting to the point now, eh, Brian?
Yeah.
Well, if you're good, Brian, and you're passionate and you want it, and you slide me $100 right now, I'll get you in.
I didn't slide him $100, but it was a good interview. Yeah. And one last thing, can you say we're going to the Sports Center with Bryan Tobin?
Yeah. What is it again? We're going to the what?
Sports Center with Bryan Tobin.
All right. Time for Sports Center with Bryan Tobin.
What does this night mean to you in general, like having your friends and family here and past teammates?
Well, it's a tremendous honor and something you can kind of share with them. They've been a big part of it and supported you and kind of pushed you and allowed you to be the best that you could be and allow you the opportunity to not only play with great teammates but have great people supporting you and pushing you to excel.
And you were in the NHL for a number of years. Who's the toughest opponent you've played against or toughest team?
None? They're all fun to play against.
And
I get asked that a lot too, and that's always my answer.
None? Not even like, Steve Yzerman? I mean, come on. You tried to check him in a game and he dodged it and you got injured.
He dodged it. This guy wants to open up old war wounds. Tim, do you want to tell him what happened to the last guy that comes back?
See my scar?
No comment.
And
Anything else?
Yeah, one more question. You won a
Okay,
cup
make it
with
a good one.
You won the cup with the Anaheim Ducks. Can you go through the motions of what that was like?
Well, it's a culmination of a long season and a lifelong dream, and it was a great experience and something you always remember. You know, the bond that you forge with guys when you go through a season like that and you're able to achieve your goal is pretty special.
So we're going to talk about Bell Let's Talk, your Sick Not Weak project, and Changes Hope. We'll also talk about your career on OTR.
Okay.
Okay, so first things first, how you doing today?
You know, I could say I've never been better, and that might be accurate. Actually, I'm having a great day. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and it's looking at it from the inside looking out. So it looks cold, but who the hell cares? Because I'm inside.
And I just want to say that it kind of feels weird without the OTR music on when I'm doing the interview, because I'm so used to hearing it.
It kind of feels weird for me. The whole experience of doing a show for 18 years and 3 months, and I say that only because we looked it up, and the Beachcombers was on for 18 years and 2 months. So there's a huge status in beating the Beachcombers for longevity. But it's a really weird experience to have done something for that long and to not be doing it. I don't find it sad. I'm not mad about it. It's just freaking weird. It's just crazy, like when you're wired to do something.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the first thing I want to ask about is when did you get involved in this Bell Let's Talk movement?
I was fortunate enough to have started in my own mind, my own movement. In 2009, I interviewed Stefan Richer. We talked about mental health briefly, and that changed my life because of the reaction that I got from people. It was crazy. It was just all of a sudden getting emails saying it changed my life to hear two pretty normal guys talking about their mental illness without seeming embarrassed or without seeming ashamed and without, for sure, sounding weak. Because I'm telling you this, Michael, and I've never told this to another person. So that changed my life. All of a sudden, that empowered me and basically slapped me in the face and said, you better do more of this because you have the power based on your story and the platforms to save people's lives. And it's not like I'm unique. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, look at me, I've got the power to change people's lives. Everyone has that power if they share their story. So I started doing this before Bell actually owned TSN. And then I guess maybe a year later, I don't remember exactly when it was, maybe 2 years later, Bell bought TSN and immediately started the Bell Let's Talk Day. So I have been involved in it from the start, but I was involved in my own teeny-weeny initiative before that.
It's interesting that you said that because that's like, it just ties into the next question is, do you feel like when celebrities or talk show hosts are more kind of open about it or bring it to light, do you think it allows people to more or less not feel embarrassed and be more open themselves?
Well, I don't that. I know that. It's the one thing that I've learned is the power of recognition. I would say celebrity, but then that would be putting myself in the position of being a celebrity, and I don't want to say that. So let's go with the power of recognition. If someone recognizes you on television, for instance, or on radio or on a podcast, and their perception of you is that you're a pretty strong person, whether they like you or not. And then you talk about your struggles with mental health issues. Immediately, you're making the statement to them, look, this is not a weakness. This is just a sickness. And that is so huge, so empowering that the single, Bell did the study before they launched Bell Let's Talk Day. The single most powerful way to change people's impressions of mental illness is to show recognizable people talking about their own struggles. That is way more powerful than anything else. So every time you see a recognizable person, you go, yeah, on TV, hey, wait a second, I know that guy. Yeah, that's off the record. Yeah, Landsberg, I think he's a jerk. Whoa, what's he saying? Talking about his depression, really? Wow, he suffers from depression. The guy always seems like he's up. Wow, I guess you can't always tell. Wait one sec. That guy's he's a pretty cocky guy too, and he seems pretty strong. So maybe I'm wrong about depression and anxiety and mental illness being a weakness. That's what happens.
I watched it when I started getting interested in TSN because I've done sports journalism and I've done broadcasting. So that's when I started to watch it, and you learn from the Michael Landsbergs, the James Duthies, and how to do interviews. The favorite ones I always like is when you do the wrestling stars, like the Bret Harts, the Steve Austins. It seems like you guys have a bit of fun of it. Like I've always been an Austin fan, so that's like my personal favorite one of when you kind of joked around with Austin. What are some of your favorite OTR memories, or even your sports desk memories?
Well, wrestling. The thing about wrestling is that wrestling put us on the map in 1998 when we started. 1997 when we started the show. Bret Hart was a guest with on a panel the first week we were on the air, and I remember him saying afterwards, "Yeah, I enjoyed it, but you should only be talking to me. I got stories to tell or whatever." And we did an interview like that with him, and I guess Vince McMahon saw it and thought, wow, this is really interesting to hear this guy not speak as the Hitman, but to speak as Bret Hart. So he said, you can interview people on my roster, and they will be out of character. So now all of a sudden, The Rock wasn't The Rock, he was Dwayne Johnson. Now all of a sudden, The Undertaker wasn't The Undertaker, he was Mark Calloway. Steve Austin wasn't Steve Austin, he was, I forget.
It's like Steve Williams, I think.
Steve Williams, that's it. And that became huge for us because no one else was allowed to do that because these guys didn't do mainstream media. No one else had done it before because they hadn't been allowed to go out of character before. So all of a sudden now we were given this gift that people turned to. So when we did those shows, our ratings were huge, like nothing that we will ever touch again. But TSN was broadcasting at the time Raw and Nitro. So there was a partnership between TSN and between the WWE at the time. So there was the spirit of partnership, which is it's good for us, it's good for you. And it worked great. But then TSN ended up allowing the rights to leave because they wanted to do Monday Night Football, and they thought as a sports network we should probably choose football over wrestling. So then those rights went to the other guy. But even before that change happened, the power of the wrestler had kind of diminished for us because wrestling hit its peak sometime in the late 90s when it was crazy
Attitude
popular.
Era. When
Nitro and Raw, they called it the Monday Night Wars. They would go head to head, and the ratings would come out the next day, and it was a battle that was being fought on so many different battlegrounds, and we were the beneficiaries of it because we got WCW too. We had, Goldberg was on one day, not a good guest by the way. Eric Bischoff kept coming back and trash talking me and trash talking Vince, and it was just really good television.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it interesting too. Is it's actually like it's reality. They're not playing a character. They're telling their actual stories towards things.
Yeah, well, imagine how uninteresting it would be if you interviewed, let's say, from The Big Short, Christian Bale, who had did you see the movie The Big Short?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so he played a role as kind of a really unusual, weird investor who could see the fall coming in 2008 in the housing market and predicted it and bet against the banks who were betting on the housing, and he ended up being correct, obviously. But if I interviewed Christian Bale right now and he was talking in character like he was this person from the movie, he would go, well, this is just stupid. I don't want to hear what he has to say when he's assuming that role. Similarly, if you interview The Rock and, he's talking to you in this voice, I will destroy him. You go, well, that's not interesting. That's not fun because I'm talking to a person that doesn't exist.
Jim, what do you think of the Liberals' kind of platform of bringing all the refugees to Canada?
Well, I think it's a very noble plan. It's one where Canadians have been generous in the past, whether it was with the Vietnamese boat people or refugees escaping from the war in Lebanon. So we have a rich history of helping those in need, and this is a continuation of that.
They say that there's about to be I think 800 to 12,000 or so refugees coming to Ottawa. What's the sort of plan to get them not only to come here but to feel welcomed here?
Well, it's actually going to be we estimate between 800 and 2,000 refugees. And so we have a number of groups that have already got together private sponsorship where a group of 5 individuals or a church or something like that will sponsor a family, and they take care of all of the expenses of finding them an apartment and so on. So we've got a couple hundred in that category, and then others will be government sponsored where the government will we'll help define the apartment and provide them funding for a year to let them get on their feet, provide them with some English or French training and so on. So we have the capacity, I believe, to deal with anywhere between 800 and 2,000 refugees in Ottawa in the next several months.
Is there a chance that some of them maybe, I know there was an article in, I think it was the Citizen or the Sun, saying that CHEO is opening up their doors and there might be a few that stay on military bases.
Yeah, the initial plan is that they would come into Toronto and Montreal, and perhaps in the short term they would be housed in military base until they're sent into the community in an apartment of some kind or a house. So that's really sort of a stopgap to get them registered with the Canadian government to do any health screenings and checks. And then once that is done, they would move into the community. And in fact, some of the people flying into Toronto and Montreal would eventually end up in Ottawa. And
do you think it's a good thing that a lot of the smaller communities are opening up their doors, like, just to get them more accustomed to the lifestyle of being in a bigger city?
Yeah, I think, there's the jury is out on that, because I was listening today to an expert who advises it's not a great idea to bring one or two families into a small community, because you need some kind of volume of people who speak the language, Arabic, and who can help act as a bit of a support network. So I think a lot of small communities are very gracious and want to be helpful, but I think it may be more successful if there's a larger quantity of families that are living in the same city or same part of a city. Because if you take one family and put them into a community that has no or very few Arabic speakers, that's a challenge for the family, and you want to set them up for success, not failure.
And how do you feel about them being, it was in, I think, the Citizen, they mentioned that there's a lot of them that are reluctant to come to Canada.
Yeah, I saw that, and that's, I think it's so far away and such a different climate and so on. But at the end of the day, my view is that it's a lot better to be in our country, which is a peaceful country, than living in a tent city in Jordan or Lebanon and, fearful of your life if you're still in Syria. So ultimately, you can't force people to come to our country, but our government has indicated they want to have at least 25,000 people by the end of February, and they're working towards that, which is a noble goal.
And just finally, what's your message towards anyone, like the refugees that are coming here? Like, what's your kind of take on it?
Well, the message is welcome. We look forward to helping you adjust to your new life and get you settled in and get kids in school and start, skill training for those people who have skills that obviously we want the family members who are able to work. And, we want to do what we can as a city to be a very welcoming community for people who have escaped with basically nothing but the clothes on their back, and their houses, many instances, has been destroyed. They've lost loved ones. They're suffering from PTSD as a result of seeing loved ones killed in the bombings in Syria. So we want them to understand that they're very much welcome in our city and in our country.
All right, thank you.
Right.